All right, so I'm Kayla. You guys know that, and then Ian obviously is my partner. So we had the section 3, 2008, called it a bubble to trouble. Okay, so overview, we're gonna go over economists and price bubbles, what is a bubble, how humans think and how that plays into economics, an overview of 2008, economic theory, future of economics, and then just kind of pulling it all together. So the 2008 crash is often defined as an unforeseen bubble that ultimately burst. However, economics states that it's theoretically not possible to have an asset price bubble. This is reflected in the efficient market hypothesis theory, which states the following points that are listed on this slide. I won't read them all for you, but basically the price of any asset is the best predictor of intrinsic value. In finance, intrinsic value is the fundamental value is the true, inherent, or essential value of an asset, independent of its market value. So what's wrong with this theory? So there's a lot of people who tried to prove this theory wrong or point out the issues with it. Basically, it does not account for uncertainty which exists. These three men that I listed, Vernon, Jerry, and Arlington, did a study which is defined by the points on the slide. Even though they created what should have been a perfectly predictable study, bubbles or unexplained gaps in their study existed. So they basically took assets distributing one of four dividends, so 0, 8, 28, and 60 cents, all equal probabilities. And then, so with this result, they expected a dividend of 24 cents every period. Finance theory states that the price of any asset is equal to the expected value of its future dividends. Therefore, they predicted that it should be 360 at the beginning of this experiment and go down 24 cents each period. No uncertainty should have existed, but for some reason there were still bubbles in the gap. Okay, so bursting bubbles. Robert Shiller said the efficient market hypothesis is the most remarkable error in the history of economic theory.
Okay, just pause there for a moment. So guys and girls, efficient market hypothesis is probably the spine of economics and finance. Okay, I'm not exaggerating. Everything is built on it. So you might say, I mean, why should I care? You're just like a person in the street, or we are a layperson. Why should we care about the economic theory? Just because this theory assumes that people are rational. We talked about last week. And there can't be any price bubbles, okay? Just because if there is any price bubble, since everybody is rational, somebody would immediately realize that price bubble, okay? And just try to benefit from it. And so that asset price bubble will just like collapse, okay? So immediately one person in the world, like out of 5 or 6 billion people would realize it. That's the essence of the theory. This guy, Robert Shiller, he's a professor of finance at Yale. He said this phrase a couple of years before the crisis. So he said that this theory is a remarkable error in the history. I mean, nobody heeded him. Okay. So he said, like, hey guys, we are doing wrong. People are not rational, and there can be bubbles. So just like please, just like let's look at at least the house prices. He insisted that there was an asset price bubble in house prices before 2008. He's still teaching, by the way, at Yale. And 5 years after the crisis, he was awarded Nobel Prize in Economics in 2013. Before, nobody cared him. Okay, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so there, along with him too, there was other people that tried to warn and say that there was an issue with this theory, but people didn't really want to accept it. It's been accepted for so long, they didn't want to really rock the boat, I guess, so to say. Okay, so Shiller defined a bubble as a situation in which news of price increases spurs investor enthusiasm, which spreads by psychological contagion from person to person, in the process amplifying stories that might justify the price increases and bringing in a larger and larger class of investors who, despite doubts about the real value of an investment, are drawn to it partly through envy of others. We'll go into that more later. Successes and partly through gamblers' excitement. That was the same guy, Robert Schiller, that we just talked about.
Look at the interesting words here. Okay, I will just point out a couple of words here. The first one is investor enthusiasm. It has nothing to do with economics. Psychological contagion, nothing to do with economics. Amplifying stories. So he's saying that people tell stories to each other. Envy of others. I mean, what does envy have to do with finance? I mean, nobody cares envy, right? Envy is just like between two boys, two girls, or maybe one boy, one girl. Just like envy is total nonsense in economics. I mean, I have a PhD in economics, guys. I have never and ever heard these words in my life, in none of my education history, like envy, gambler's excitement. What the gambler's excitement? Like, what does it have to do with finance and economics? And this guy, Robert Schiller, was saying that, hey, guys, forget about numbers, forget about the rationality, forget about the optimization, forget about everything about economics. We are talking about the humans, and humans have senses like envy, excitement, enthusiasm, contagion, like amplifying stories. We tell stories to each other. So that makes the life, that makes the bubble. That's what he says, basically.
So we've all kind of heard we've talked about this a little bit too, the rational man assumption, which is an idea in economics that humans make rational decisions based on logic and careful analysis, which fails to recognize the psychological and social factors that shape our decisions more than rational ones. Kind of like you just said, like you don't hear about envy or these other factors in economics, but they do shape our decisions a lot. Like envy, they have others drive them to irrational decisions. Another Robert Schiller quote, financial bubbles are like epidemics. We should treat them both the same way. I just like that because, he was pointing out the severity of it.
Epidemics or pandemics?
Okay, so what leads to bubbles? Well, in short, our decisions, the combination of decisions and actions of many that create sort of a domino effect. Humans' decisions violate the laws of physics that state humans carefully evaluate their options before making a decision. In fact, humans don't make their best choices by evaluating the probability of good outcomes. So what do you guys see in these pictures? So in the first one, what do you see?
I see a cat.
And in the second one?
Is the heart?
Yeah, so people see things according to patterns. The whole point of that is the rational answer would be a mountain and a cloud. But as humans...
What mountain is it, by the way?
You know what? I did find the name of it, and I meant to put it in here, and I totally forgot it because I knew someone was going to ask that. I'll have to look it up and post it.
Anyway, is it in the United States?
Yeah, I think it was. It is a real mountain. I made sure I picked a real one because it's one that's they use for this example kind of a lot. So as humans, we see things based on patterns, make decisions around those patterns. Due to the patterns we see in daily life, most of us would answer a cat or a heart as opposed to a mountain or a cloud, kind of showing that our decisions are affected by what we learn. Okay, so this is just kind of a little activity. So to kind of keep going on that route of our thinking. So let's pretend in round one, you guys are on a game show. In round one, you've earned $1,000 and you spin the wheel, you land on the bonus space. And it gives you a choice. $500 bonus guaranteed, or you can flip a coin, and if you land on heads, you get a $1,000 bonus. But if you land on tails, you get no bonus at all. Dan, what would you pick?
Dan would pick money to build the deck.
Yeah, right.
Dan?
I'm trying to unmute, sorry.
Okay. Okay, so would you...
Dismissed from this class. Go.
Flip a coin. I would take the $500 bonus because I don't like to gamble.
Okay, so you would take the bonus. Now in round two...
Can we ask like everybody, Teresa and...
Yeah, go ahead. Uh-huh.
I don't know. It's a hard one. It's the 500 that's guaranteed.
Right.
But I could get more or less. I mean, I don't like to gamble, so most likely I'm gonna stay stay with the 500.
You know, 500. How about you, Trisha?
Same for me. I don't like to gamble either.
Okay, so $500 bonus.
Me neither. So
All right.
Like
So
500.
everyone chooses the bonus. So, okay, now you guys are in round 2. You got your $500 bonus. So you're at $1,500 now. Now you've earned $2,000, and you land on a penalty space, and you have 2 choices again. You get a $500 penalty guaranteed, or you flip the coin, and if it lands on heads, you lose nothing. If it lands on tails, you lose $1,000. So either way, you still walk away with money. You can take a guaranteed penalty or flip and possibly walk away with more money. What would you guys do?
I still wouldn't flip.
You wouldn't flip? So you would take $500 off guaranteed?
Yeah.
Yeah. Trisha, what did you say?
I'd go with flipping the coin this time.
All right, we're flipping. Hang on. We're doing it.
Okay.
Okay, so you got
Say that.
tails, Trisha. So you lose $1,000.
Dang it!
All right. Don't let that affect your other decisions, Professor Warren. What would you do? And Teresa?
Was that for me?
Yeah, Teresa, what would you do?
I think I'm gonna stay with the 500.
500 penalty. Yeah, now that affected your decision.
Oh,
No,
well, no, actually, this one I'm losing $500. Is that what it is?
you lose $500 for sure, or you can flip a coin and possibly lose nothing.
Okay. So then I would flip the coin. I think I understand this
Okay,
one.
here we go. Tails, you lose $1,000.
Oh man.
Professor Orhan,
I will go with the tossing.
you're gonna toss? Okay. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry, guys. I suck at tossing this coin, I guess. You all lose $1,000. Yes.
Well, it's going to her pocket, so.
Yeah.
Kayla, are you aware what you are doing? You are taking $1,000 from a professor. Are you sure?
I'm just kidding. You can know. Okay, so in these situations, this theory is known as loss aversion, which drives our choices. Except for Dan, he took the penalty, so it didn't drive his. But okay, so this next clip, I'm gonna try and play a video for you guys that kind of explains this. Let me know if you guys have sound or not.
Let's say you're on a game show. You've already earned $1,000 in the first round when you land on the bonus space. Now you have a choice. You can either take a $500 bonus, guaranteed, or you can flip a coin. If it's heads, you win a $1,000 bonus. If it's tails, you get no bonus at all. In the second round, you've earned $2,000 when you land on the penalty space. Now you have another choice. You can either take a $500 loss or try your luck at the coin flip. If it's heads, you lose nothing. But if it's tails, you lose $1,000 instead. If you're like most people, you probably chose to take the guaranteed bonus in the first round and flip the coin in the second round. But if you think about it, this makes no sense. The odds and outcomes in both rounds are exactly the same. So why does the second round seem much scarier? The answer lies in a phenomenon known as loss aversion. Under rational economic theory, our decisions should follow a simple mathematical equation that weighs the level of risk against the amount at stake. But studies have found that for many people, the negative psychological impact we feel from losing something is about twice as strong as the positive impact of gaining the same thing. Loss aversion is one cognitive bias that arises from heuristics, problem-solving approaches based on previous experience and intuition, rather than careful analysis. And these mental shortcuts can lead to irrational decisions, not like falling in love or bungee jumping off a cliff, but logical fallacies that can easily be proven wrong. Situations involving probability are notoriously bad for applying heuristics. For instance,
All right, so that kind of explained why we make those choices. So here's kind of another question for you guys. One second. Okay, so we're all kind of familiar with the Fannie Mae and Bristol-Myers after last week, but based on this chart as if it were a current situation, which company would you guys invest on? Orange or blue, with Fannie Mae being 58.57 and Bristol-Myers being 13.70. Like, kind of disregarding any information you already know about this, just based strictly off this, if you looked at this as if it were stocks today, which would you invest in, orange or blue?
I could get more shares of Bristol-Myers, and I don't have much, so I'd probably go that route.
That's
But-
true.
You know, buy low, sell high type thing. But I usually stay out of stocks anyway.
Yeah, me too. But most people, yeah, and you're taking the opposite route today. I'm just kidding.
Sorry.
A lot of people, if they
Guys, do you hear Kayla?
what was that?
I'm asking people if they can hear you. I barely hear you.
Oh no, here, let's see.
Do you hear her, guys?
Probably because I'm outside. Maybe I'll go back inside where it's not so windy.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I personally, not knowing too much about it, would just go with, well, orange looks like the better option. That's what I would choose. But, that was a mistake for many people. A huge crash happened in what seemed like overnight, dropping Fannie Mae to $1.53 and increasing Bristol-Myers to $48.70. Moral of the story, there's a lot of uncertainty even in economics. People change their minds overnight and prices never slow down before a burst, making it hard to predict. And then I just put in a quote in here I liked, quick decisions are unsafe decisions, which I'm a super quick decision maker, so you think I would learn from that. Okay, so we could, however, possibly predict these crashes a little better if we look, or if we took psychology into consideration. Asset bubbles continue to be ignored. If economics recognize psychology a little bit more in our decision making, we may be able to understand and recognize price bubbles a little bit more. All right, I'm turning it over to Ian.
Okay, so after the crash, Queen Elizabeth, she flat out asked economists why they were unable to predict the crisis and why they were unable to prevent it, which I think is, fair if they're the leaders and the experts, why they, why we didn't have a better grasp of what was going on and why this, insane thing happened. So a lot of people wonder what exactly happened and why economists could not see it coming, and why it was still better not explained as to what happened, and why most theories point to irrational behavior leading to the crash when apparently humans are rational thinkers. Okay, so the housing crash, which most of us are familiar with, is the main attributor to the bubble that burst and caused the crisis. From 1996 to 2006, there was a 124% rise in the housing market, leading to a lot of profit on selling houses. People were driven by an envious mindset of, if the other person is making money, then why shouldn't I? They were missing out on making money, so they were, losing money. The main catastrophe of this crash can be explained by subprime mortgages. These are loans that are, regardless of income, job, and assets in the applicants, the loans were still granted, which seems irrational of the financial institutions to grant such risky loans, or you would think so anyways. Yet in 2006, 34%, so over a third of mortgages were considered subprime. So banks really didn't see an issue in this, considering that they saw the two worst outcomes, which in their eyes were still both coming out ahead. So people sell and make more money off the houses and therefore pay off the loan, or they foreclose and the bank most likely makes more money than the original loan anyways. So the ninja. People rush to get loans at an astonishing rate, and banks rush to hand them out regardless of financial status. They called them ninja loans. No income, no job, no assets. So this was referred to as the herding mentality. Even when things started to look scary, the CEO of Citibank, Chuck Prince, was quoted saying, "As long as the music is playing, we've got to get up and dance," basically saying as long as the housing market seemed to be a hot commodity and people wanted to invest in it, they would keep participating by handing out loans. This led to people taking out additional loans using their homes as collateral. These increased from 20 billion in the 90s to 700 billion in the 2000s, despite warnings by many people, including Nouriel Rubini, Brad Setzer, and Robert Schiller. Many people thought there was no way the market would crash. A few people who showed their major confidence in nothing happening, such as Barney Frank, Bernanke and Greenspan, and CNBC interview, and others who were quoted showcasing their confidence that the market was fine. So there were some experts and people on both sides. There was some people saying that like bad things were coming with all of the signs, but there were still a lot of people saying that everything was fine, that there was nothing to worry about coming. Sorry, I kind of botched the wording there. So in 2004, interest rates began to get increased. They were increased 17 times between 2004 and 2006. And by 2006, housing prices decreased by 6%. In February 2007, Freddie Mac was the first institution to stop mortgage-backed securities. And by August that same year, BNP restricted withdrawals on accounts of certain investments. So it's kind of the start. The trend continued with government bailouts until September of 2008, when Lehman Brothers, which is one of the largest corporations, filed for bankruptcy, claiming $613 billion in debt. The first company the government did not bail out. AIG was bailed out around the same time. In October 2008, the Dow Jones and the housing market fell even more. By March, Bear Stearns traded its stock, which was worth $171 a share previously, to JP Morgan for $10 a share.
Wow.
And in 2009, GM filed for bankruptcy protection. All of these events were sending out a message to others into the market that the market and that everything was in trouble, causing people to take less risks and start protecting themselves and start reacting. Okay, so people were making decisions, many just defined by a theory known as the proposer-responder. So let's say I have $100 given to me, but I have to give away a portion of it. Whatever amount I want, and I can keep, and then I can keep the rest of it. So if I offer you $10 and I'll keep $90, it leaves you with two choices by saying you can either take the $10 and I get 90, or you refuse the $10 and neither of us get anything. So the thought of what happens is that when you're on the end of receiving the $10, you'll decline that because you're getting ripped off, even though it would make sense that you're getting nothing instead of something, but because the other person is getting something or getting so much more that you think that it's a bad deal, even though $10 is better than nothing. Okay, so the average offer was around 35% of the money, and half of the responders turned down any offer lower than 30%, because it was only, you could break that up however much. If it was, I get $80 and you get $20, but it was still that if it was below or around 35% of the money, the person getting the lower amount would usually refuse it. And this comes down to what we think is fairness. People who are insulted or harmed by an offer or action of another party often respond in a way that hurts the other party, even if it means they leave themselves at a disadvantage. This is known as the fairness instinct, which possibly how many Americans felt when they felt that bankers had kind of screwed them over in the, in the transaction that they had. So, American economist Ben Bernanke stated, as a scholar.
By the way, he was the chairman of Federal Reserve. Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, chairman of the Reserve. Yeah. So, as a scholar of the Great Depression, I honestly believe that September and October 2008 was the worst financial crisis in global history, including the Great Depression.